Time. Here we go.
Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to Inner Space, episode 3, where myself, Rachel Ann, Todd Cunningham, and I am Innate will be discussing with you today consciously choosing your reality. I guess the key word there is consciously, because we can choose any reality we want at any moment, but to really consciously be aware of what we're choosing is extremely important, especially in today's environment. I guess some good examples of that would be up for Todd to bring about, because this was his baby today, and it's very similar to what we were discussing with where we're putting our focus. How, what you're paying attention to helps to create your reality. So I'm going to let Todd talk about his topic a little bit, and I hope you all enjoy. Could you please, before we really get started in conversing back and forth, if you are listening, could you please make sure that you're on mute, because there's some really weird noises and things that come through sometimes, and maybe things you might not want everybody else to know about, but it's just helpful to keep it on mute, and then we'll ask everybody later on in the conversation if you want to have any questions or comments, and then we'll take everybody off of mute. Then we can go and have some discussions from there. So Todd, how do you consciously create your reality?
Some of it I have questions about, so I'm still discovering this. I don't know that I'm the person with all the answers. I don't know that that's how it works, but I think there's a difference. What I was meaning when I got the idea to talk about we can choose our reality. So in other words, when I'm working with people, I've found to go all the way to, what do you think is real? Like if you're working on cultivating your energy connection and the energy flow in your system and making it stronger and making it more positive or more productive for yourself, more fulfilling for yourself, I think you start choosing that consciously, and you start looking at what you've allowed yourself to believe through programming, through things that you grew up with, through what people have told you, society has told you, school has told you. So the choices for me, a big choice was grounding, when I was learning that I needed to ground, and then I started talking with the planet, and I had a lot of programming about, but is the planet alive, and is the planet real? Can the planet hear me? Am I crazy? And eventually I had to just decide that for me,
I'm on live video right now.
Yes.
Nate's here.
Nate's here. You missed the intro.
Someone was just talking
to me.
The
part about mute yourself if you're on the toilet. So, that kind of thing. Hey, I just say things right out. I don't care. I'm good. Glad to have you here, by the way, Nate. Our triangle seems to really make things flow, and so
I'm on computer today, so it'll be
great.
A lot better connection.
Awesome. So I was talking about choosing your reality, and then for me, when I decided that, okay, internally it's real for me. Internally, I just feel, I'm empathic. I feel things first. That's my most natural skill. So I just feel the planet. And when I go out in the woods, the world feels different to me than when I walk down a city street where a lot of the natural world's been interrupted. And so when I decided the planet is alive, so I'm going to start cultivating a relationship with talking to Mother Earth as if she can hear me. That's when it really started shifting. And that knowing comes from something inside of me. We could go on all day long. Is that real? Isn't it real? Is it true? Can you prove it? And that part's just circular in a way too. So the part I mean about you choose your reality is, well, what's true for you? So there's a lot of gray zone here, and yet, look at what's happening in our world right now, which is, do you know you can heal yourself? And if it's true that you know you can heal yourself, then the next question becomes, are you doing it? Are you running your life and choosing to do things in such a way that it reinforces your knowing that you heal inside of yourself? Or are you immediately going back to a different program that you had about, oh, but what does this person say? And what does that person say? And, is there something I'm supposed to be afraid of? And the doctors say this and that doctor say, and you could literally go crazy and stress yourself out and get sick.
Well, that's why it's so important for you to be centered.
And I could tell you what I believe, and that can be helpful, but in the end, you have to go inside and go, is there something inside of me that knows, yes, I heal on the inside. Therefore, the next question becomes, how do I help reinforce that? What were you saying, Rachel?
I said that's why it's so important for us to be centered, or to have that means of finding our center, whatever it is for whoever. It's different for everyone. Like, for you, it's connecting with the earth. For me, there's a space within that I go to. It's mine. It's all I am. And that's where the no thingness, the silence, the pure potential is. And I think when people have that ability to do that, on a daily basis or whenever they find necessary, I mean, ideally it'd be great to be there all the time, but then it's kind of difficult to interact with the rest of the world here. But for people to have those different ways of centering themselves is really important in order for them to be able to start to consciously choose the reality they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be fragmented.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's other examples. That's my go-to example, but absolutely. Yeah. I agree. There's an inner, that's how I like communicate with whatever, I decide I want to. Like, I've learned I can climb inside of this phone if I want to. It's made out of the same stuff as the rest of the universe, and I can go in there and look around now that I know how to do this.
And Todd, you said, something that you said about walking down the street as opposed to walking through the forest. Yes, it's different, but it also doesn't have to be. You can cultivate the same connection and the same love and the same oneness with everything around you. It's different, but you can cultivate that same oneness walking down a city street as opposed to a forest. It's there. I don't know. There's some words I'm trying to find, but they're not quite coming. It's not as easy for me to do it. I'll say it's not as easy for me to do that because it's so much busier and so many more things are flying and coming at you, and there's not that peace, but it can be done. You really got to train yourself.
No, I agree with you. I'm just saying it's my in the woods or by lake or sit by a stream, or because it's more balanced and it's easier to tune to that. one of the first places I noticed this, where it's just a really, I had to do a lot of work and work with my, what do I know? What do I believe, to find the same connection when I was literally walking down Park Avenue 30 years ago and just realizing, because there's a tube of copper wire running under the streets. It's the size of a jet airliner. And that electrical current that's very discordant, it's not a life affirming, life giving, life repeating cycle. It's very disruptive to me if I haven't trained myself and learned how to literally tune into another channel. I don't think it's fighting with it or canceling it out, but so I learned that from how do I connect when I'm out in a more balanced, natural environment, to do it in this city too.
Well, you just brought up another point that is really important too. Then I've brought this up on the last couple of times that we've done this, where when you look at something and you say, oh no, that's bad, or oh no, I don't want that, then you're putting up a block and you're not stepping into the flow, which was our last episode. You're not allowing the flow, and there's going to be things around you, like wires and whatever, that feel odd to you, but they're still there. And as I said on the last couple of episodes, everything is created, everything is divine. I mean, good, bad, happy, sad, all of it is all one thing. And it's just us that puts a connotation on it. And if we can allow these things to flow and be there without putting this block to it, I think that it makes our ability to create our reality a lot easier. And it allows our creation to flow a lot more too. And the something else, some of the greatest gurus that or teachers from the yoga teachings that I've experienced, they sit on the streets in India, and they're meditating with all of that around them, or they're practicing different types of yoga studies with just the most condensed populations, just doing whatever all around them. And my first teacher, my first yoga teachings, that was the biggest thing that I took from that. One of the biggest things was that, if you can do yoga here on the floor without your mat, you can do yoga anywhere, which is true. And yoga is, to me, it is everywhere, and it is life, and it is, as whatever's on your mat's off your mat, you take it with you. And the same as, walking on a city street as opposed to a beautiful path in the woods, you take that with you. It's that beauty's everywhere. You've just got to be able to recognize it and live with it and be it.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to just say something here too. Is mine tuning in, Todd? Do you hear me?
Oh yeah, you're good.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay, cool. So like for sure, like what Rachel's saying, you can tune in from anywhere. This is the differences or whatever, because like I do a lot of things doing vortex work. I go out physically to these places where I realize I can be doing it meditating here at home and as if I'm astrally going out there or whatever. But when you're physically in a place, like say in nature or whatever, you have all those senses, right? You have the smell of nature, you have the sun hitting you, you have just that feeling where you can do all that from like in your own little cubicle back at home inside, or like in the city, wherever you're living, right? You just got to be able to imagine to create those senses to connect you there, because whatever way you do it, I do a lot through smell and sight. So like I imagine that smell of where I'm at and seeing those things, or the energy, because I'm always tuning more into the energy. So that's how I'll do it. I'll connect to the energy, even if I'm in nature or at home, it doesn't matter. But I I bring in whatever those senses are that I'm using, because it makes it easier for you to ground and connect as if. But I will say, like, when you're physically in that environment doing it, for sure, there's a difference to me in the fact that, like, like you do connect with the five senses plus one, the six senses, and being at home you can do that, but I just, maybe I'm not there yet, but I'm not fully able to do the same thing within me that I see that I'm doing when I'm working on a vortex here. But it's just we getting to that level of being able to do it anywhere. It's great to be able to do that, but like the average person right now, they're going to have a hard time doing that. So it may be easier to go to a place in nature to get that connecting experience first, then bring it back to wherever you are. If you're meditating at home, bring all those senses that you really connect with and bring them back to your environment where you're at. Because like I said, smell is a big one for me. So like I'll even smell the essences of being outdoors from where I am working on my vortex when I'm meditating in the morning in my shower. I do an hour shower every day where I'm doing all this exercise stuff, and I bring all those senses in when I'm doing my meditation part. So yeah, go ahead.
No, definitely, definitely, Nate. I agree with you. And yeah, I have a hard time if I'm in the streets of New York City or, wherever. It takes me a moment, and I'm not always conscious. I'm not a walking conscious being yet, or maybe ever. I don't know, but when I have those moments, I try to remember, okay, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. I'm aware. I want to be aware of what I'm doing and not just walking around
Yeah.
kind of empty. But you're right about the recharge. I think everybody needs a recharge. And however that is for you. Some people, all they have for a recharge is a little plant that they have in the corner of their room. And that's their recharge. Or maybe it's a dog or something, or a bird that comes to their feeder. Maybe that's their recharge. And then having the sensations, like you said, you always amp me up. Like you're like a catalyst, like you're talking about. Every time we talk, you're like a catalyst to me. You're like the smell, and I'm like, oh yeah, the smell. And then if
Yeah,
the wind
that's my
starts
big
coming
one
in,
lately. It's all smell for me. It's weird. I can
yeah, that's a
smell
big
things.
one. The
Yeah, I
wind
mean,
is always a
that's,
big
I
one.
think that's, it's what we're talking about. So that, I mean, there's the yogi who can sit on in front of 1,000 people and drink the bottle of arsenic and just keep on teaching as a lesson.
Right,
I
it can be done.
probably won't go drink the bottle of arsenic right this minute. I'm not even committed to that one to like show that it's nothing. So there's that side of it, and there's the learning how to do it in a space that's more easier. Nature's, obviously there's a synergy about everything in the natural environment, and the stuff that's more disruptive is most often, not always, but often, weather and things like that can be a challenge in a different way. But the man-made stuff, I think it's part of our evolution that we're going to learn how to use different kinds of power and make things, change the materials. We're going to make the cities so that they're more synchronized with a more coherent frequencies of information. I think that's part of it, and we can infuse those areas just by walking through them if we're broadcasting, those kinds of frequencies. So I think it's a circular story, but it's, you catch yourself. I think the conscious part is you can catch yourself being dragged down by everything around in your environment and go, wait, I don't have to do this. Just because my whole entire environment is on a certain channel doesn't mean I have to be on that channel. And
I
you
wanted
change it,
to
you can choose it.
add for that environment thing, Todd, why you're saying that, like you can pay attention, even though you're consciously creating your reality. How can you watch this from like looking at the external world? Rachel brought a great idea with plants. Okay. For instance, my wife, okay, she's very empathic. She started getting plants like when we first got married, and she always told me she kills every plant. Okay. And the reason for this, right? This is our reality. We're watching it outside, a way to watch it outside yourself, to pay attention for inside yourself. Okay. The second she started releasing her stuff, doing more yoga, whatever, the plants started actually getting to be like where they weren't dying anymore. But not only that, she's adding energy into their life force, because our environment around us shows us what's going on with us. If I have a dog that's sick, if I have a cat that's throwing up or this, they are showing us ourselves. Okay, because they're only pure energy. So what's going on with them, or the plants, for instance, what's going on with them is showing us what we need to do for ourselves. So we can be aware, like with that consciously creating with everything around us at the same time. I wanted to add that. So, you know.
Yeah, so I mean,
I
that's
agree.
our blessing and our curse is that we can choose.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe, you know, whatever they say animals do or don't, I don't know exactly if they can catch themselves and change their mind and be like, oh,
Well, so like me with Dizzy, like he's had cancer 3 different times, and every time I muscle tested him, because I do this kinesiology nutrition testing, he has everything that I have. Every organ that was off is all the same things going on with me. So he's a product of my environment. So he's taking everything from me. But I use the supplements and I'm fixing him. So then it gives him his life force back. So like he can't consciously maybe change what he's doing, but we can help our environment to change, which is changing us inside of ourselves at the same time.
Yes.
Because everything is connected to everything else. If something in your environment's off and you're noticing it, it's because something inside you is off at the same time. Everything is that much connected to everything else. So
Right.
when a dog has, like Dizzy having his cancer when he was 8 years old, I was going through insane changes. I found out I had Hashimoto's in my thyroid, and his had to do with his thyroid. Okay. And it was interesting because he was pulling the shit out of me to help me, but he was taking the brunt of it all. But I started doing energy work on him and not grounding it through me, just clearing it outside of me. And I was able to bring him back with the supplements, and I was helping myself by helping him at the same time, and helping myself doing things at the same time too. Okay. So it's fascinating how connected our environment is with everything that we're doing. So by consciously creating what's around us, it is us, but we can see what's going on around us to change ourselves and change our environment at the same time. Just like the virus, everything in our body, our environment internally feeds everything else. So if you're feeding it, you're not changing anything. You got to change your internal environment so it doesn't feed it. And it's that
Right.
simple.
well,
You
so
You
know?
I
want to
think,
be
you know,
what you want the world to be, right?
Yeah.
That's my favorite motto, or my favorite saying is be what you want the world to be. Be what you want your environment to be. Be what you want the people around you to be.
we're all the
Yep.
way back to the whole Pono Ono.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And you said a really key thing. You said, so when you start noticing it, so I think that then there's just one more step that we're trying to talk about, which is, so once you notice there's something going on, then the next step is, so what is it inside of me that I can shift?
Yep.
That, you know, that's we're really well trained to go, okay, you change the outside, and it's not that you might not, whatever, sit down, set up space in a room, do some saging, do all these outside things to help support you. I think those ceremonies just help remind you how to get there.
Yep. But at the same time as you're doing the stuff outside, it's doing inside. It's always going together. I mean, even if you're the
Right.
type of person doing everything outside of yourself, what you're doing is helping you internally. Like, so like they can go inside more if they want, but by what if they're changing their environment, they're changing what's going on inside. You know, like taking essential oils, I found when I first started getting into them, it changed my internal environment so much. It made my awareness heighten more to things outside and inside myself, and how my inner chaos was creating my outer chaos, because it's really your inner chaos that's creating your whole reality. And we need the chaos right now to make change, because most people are having a really hard time making changes. So they need to have the chaos because it's going to disrupt them enough to do it. It's like I've been doing these sound baths that it's not just all the pretty sounds. I brought this up to you already, Todd, but I wanted to mention this on the video. These guys I'm working with, they make disrupting frequencies on purpose, because the disrupting frequencies make change in your field. And then they come in with the pure sound, and then the pure sound can fix things, but you need the disruption first, where we're all tuned to like everything being pretty all the time, and we think everything's love, everything's light, right? We've mentioned this on all of our videos so far, but the disruption, like me and you talk too, how you and I are both disruptors with people around us. We disrupt, and that's our energy. We're supposed to, we're here for that. Okay. But where there's disruption, there's unity at the same time, because as you disrupt something, you're unifying the field again at the same time. So it's like a balance.
You're giving it a shock
Yes.
to remember, a little shocker.
And
Yeah.
all three of us do that in our own ways.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah,
like
and
it's really like it's like white noise almost.
Yes.
It makes white
Yes.
noise in a you know, it cleans the slate. That, you know, look at our outer world right now. There's not one thing that's stable right now with anybody. There's no outward, you know, everyone says, oh, I'm stable. I'm like, okay, you know, I mean, and nobody knows.
Denial.
And the thing that keeps coming around with that, which is everyone's, you know, like, well, when this just changes and when that thing just changes, and you're like, yeah, when are you going to change it?
Yeah. And we all have denial for our own stuff, because we think, you know, everyone thinks they're perfect in their own way, but like it's all about us not being perfect. And
right.
You know, like it's all about the beauty of life is the fact that things aren't perfect. And we do have this inner shadow stuff, because otherwise we wouldn't acknowledge all the good things, right?
But it's also really important to, you know, because something really lacking in our world is telling yourself I am enough, and telling yourself you're a good person, and
I'm perfectly imperfect.
Yep.
Or you're perfect. Forget about the imperfect. Just say I'm perfect. You know, it's not the training, the programming is that, oh, that's like arrogant, and it's.
Yeah, I have an example of that.
Why is it to say that I'm a good person and I'm good at what I'm doing, and then I have something to offer and people like hearing what I have to say? If you don't tell yourself that, you won't do anything that's inside of you that, oh, I could do this, I could do that. It's not against somebody else. It's not more than. You're not saying you're better than other people. But that's really lacking. That's like really, really lacking in our world.
Yeah. I met a gal recently that she goes, you know, she works out a lot at the gym, and she takes pictures of herself, you know, with little selfies, and she's in great shape. And she's like, you know what? I've had people give me crap because I take pictures of myself. She's like, I'm proud of how hard I've worked. I'm proud of how I've really tried, you know, and this is just her thing that she's, you know, that's bringing her to this mindset. She's like, I look damn good and I'm psyched about it and I'm glad and I'm gonna take pictures of myself and I'm gonna be proud of that. And I was like, well, good for you, you know? There's no reason she shouldn't. There's no reason she should be shamed and say, oh no, you shouldn't do that. I mean, it's not sexually provocative, it's not, you know, any of those things. And so what if it was? Maybe that's her nature. Maybe she has a sexually provocative nature, which she doesn't, but in this case. But why are people, I don't understand why people have to be shamed for doing things that make them feel good, you know, and that like, this makes me feel good and I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a selfie of myself and this is great. And she's having that, she's empowering herself and maybe empowering others. And who knows? I mean, it's just kind of a silly little example, but for one person, it could mean everything. It could be the thing that boosts them and keeps them going.
It's really interesting how the programming, for whatever reason, I have my theories on it, but the programming, you know, if you're overweight, you get shamed. And if you're in good shape, you get shamed. And if you're successful, you get shamed. And if you're, you know, down and out and you're quote unquote a loser, you get shamed. There's no place where it's just like, okay, I'm me.
I would say, like Todd, with this subject too, like men, it's a lot easier for us to like deal with that because we haven't had as much of that programming. Women have to deal with it from, I used to run a lipo laser, and you know who would come to me were the tiny women that still thought they were bigger, right? That's the most common person I got. It had nothing to do with their physical body. It was their confidence. And men have it too, but it's just we don't have to deal with it even a tenth as much, you know.
Right.
Men just have it differently.
But I mean, I've never had that program. I'm lucky. I don't care what I look like. I don't care. I've never had it. I was born that way. I don't care.
Well, I mean, women have a lot
you know?
of. I think there's a lot of body and how you look programming in our world, totally, and certainly for women. But in some ways, the men have this is how you are. This is like how you act, what you do, what you say. Like that is really, you know, there's a lot of talk about how it's controlled and women are, and it's true.
Well,
if you look at how the men's world is controlled, it's just pigeonholed into a tight little slot, and that's it.
Yeah.
This is what you do. This is what, you know, you can talk about the weather and sports. You don't talk about emotions, you know, and you talk about women, how they're kind of, you know, like an object. And, you know, I'm talking about the old school programming. So we have a lot of.
Well, men, it's like survival with their family. You know what I mean? It's like taking care of their family. That's what I saw back home in New York. Here, I feel a lot of the men and women it's pretty balanced. I don't see that as much, but it's interesting. Like the other day, I shaved my beard and half of it right here was my razor died, and I forgot about it totally. And I went out all day long that day with a sideburn going down on one side of my face, and I just made everyone laugh all day. It was
That's
great.
awesome.
I would walk by one side on someone and then the other, and they'd think it's a total different person, and I just laugh. You know, but like it's women, it's harder with the physical stuff. Men, it's more that programming. We have to take care of our family, we have to pay the bills, and you know, and it's all bullshit, both sides.
I think all of it
women do it to themselves, because you know, the women will be like, this one had a spot and a little thing on their shirt, and most men I know would be like, what spot on their shirt? They don't even.
Well, I think a lot of it
don't even compute that was there. It's like, well, what color were their eyes?
Back to is the patriarchy and the matriarchy, the feminine and the masculine. That all of that goes back, even for the men. Like, you know, to be in touch with the feminine, to allow yourself that, just and not have to be in that hardcore patriarchy or hardcore masculine type mental thinking, or, you know, it's just let your creativity flow. Good job, Nate.
I was on
But
Bell Rock, our most popular hiking trail when that happened, and Charlie
nice.
was going up it. She hikes every hike with me, and we went to the very tip of the top, and she hiked up with her claws. She was slipping the whole way down,
Oh
and
my
I was
God.
more paying attention to Charlie than anything else, but it was funny to see the people around us, they were watching the dog in my face. And I'm just like kind of making people laugh or like think things like based on judgment, which it brings
Yeah,
out their crap at the same
it
time.
is. It's all judgment. And a perfect example of that I that settled into me and made me think differently was, how women shave their legs and they shave their underarms. And, I
Yeah,
was like, well, why? Men don't do
yeah,
it. Why? And then
yeah.
I did some reading and I forget the year, I think 1940s or 50s, when all the men went to war, Gillette had their sales fall because everybody was off to war. So, they make razors. And so they were like, well, how are we going to get our sales back up again? So they started promoting, women shaving. And that's where it really took off, women shaving. And once I read about that, I was
Hmm.
like, I'm a victim of a consumer capital idea. And so I personally, I
Yeah,
don't I don't shave my underarms anymore. I
yeah.
just clip them. Um,
And it's
and
good because that's antennas. All your hair on your body,
I
it's
know,
well, by you shaving it too, even your legs, it doesn't matter to me at all.
right?
I don't care about any of that. I actually think women should have their hair grow out because you're losing part of your empowerment because that's your
Yeah,
little
yeah.
energetic antenna.
And
It's
I
just
had
like
that
men
taken
not having
away.
long hair. Do you know why we don't
Exactly.
have long hair? Because of war.
Right.
That whole war programming,
Yeah.
you know?
And when I was a kid growing up, I had to go to Catholic school, and I had like the little, I was Italian. Well, I still am, I guess, but I had that Italian in me, and so I had like the little unibrow going and little mustache going, and I was always so ashamed of that, and I went on, and later in my life, and I had had that taken away, and but part of me says, why did I do that to myself? And the only reason I did that was to fit in, and not have somebody poke fun at me, and it's just that was just something little on me. And I just can't imagine so many people around, especially women, who have to deal with so many different things and feel so down about themselves because of it, because of something natural, something that they were born to be. And I'm still guilty of it. I'll still, in the summertime, I'll still wax my legs, but I'll only do it once, and then it starts growing back. And my kids have been like, "Ew, mom, that's gross." But you know what? It kind of feels good when the wind blows. It's
Mhm.
when it's a nice warm day.
Yep.
I just got my hair cut yesterday because it starts feeling big, and maybe I'm just attached to that. I don't know.
I think there is a preference to it as well. Like, I mean, I could go into detail about other things, but I won't because it's probably not appropriate. But it's a preference in how you feel.
Mhm.
I would love to shave my hair off completely, but then that'd be upkeep. I'd have to keep up with it. So I just let it grow because then it's easier for me. And
Yeah.
you know,
That's like me with my beard. I'd rather not shave it ever. I'll let it go a month and then I shave it once, but my face is so sensitive. I hate
yeah.
it.
And then
You know?
I don't dye my hair anymore. I did that from the time I was like 30 years old. As a woman, I had, gray hair coming in
Yeah.
already, and I was like, "Ah,"
So
and it
can I
wasn't even
bring
that
up
much.
nutrition stuff with you? Like a
Hmm.
lot of her stuff, she worked with me with nutrition. I believe it was her hair dye causing a lot of what was going on with you, Rachel,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah,
And
and I knew it
it's
because I would
crazy.
get really sensitive, and my scalp would itch, and so I stopped doing that, probably around 40. I think I was 40, so a good 10 years I was dyeing my hair, and once I stopped, my allergies subsided, But I got comments. I got so many negative comments from people like, what's up with your hair? I was like, if you don't like it, don't look at it. I was nasty about it. People like
That's
older,
awesome.
much older people than me would say it to me. You know, like way older than me, and they'd be like, what'd you do? What? How come your hair is that color? I'm like, I'm natural. Are you?
It's
And
their own
I was kind of mean.
insecurity, Rachel.
Exactly.
It's their own insecurity. Anytime
And
someone says something, it's
it
something
was
it's
from
hard
really
though.
inside.
hard to not, it's really hard to not, for me, it's really hard to not be just mean. The first time someone's mean to me, I'm like, and I've had to really learn like things like, oh, thank you for telling me that. Or,
Yeah.
I see. I don't.
oh,
I'm
thanks
like,
for,
just give it
that
back.
it's just, I know, but it's so clean when you know,
If you
and
don't
it
like
can
it, don't look at
escalate. You
it.
can say, so,
Mm.
I didn't hear you. What exactly did you say? And if they're willing to like insult you again, you say, so you want to insult me? Like it's really empowering if you can
See, that
choose,
to me is playing a game. I can't get engaged. It's too much
and
of
you
my
can choose
energy.
to stay in that zone. But often at times you help them. A lot of times they come out, they're like, I really am having a bad day. And it completely like, instead of going away and this person was a jerk to me and that's what you remember, it literally comes around to, they're like, I need help with this or something. It's pretty interesting.
Well,
So
it
we're
is
laughing
hurtful,
a
and
lot today.
you do go away with it though, and it is hurtful. But it helps also. Even that, that little stab that somebody throws at you, it makes you stop and say. For me, it made me stop and say, well, why would I want to even make that matter? Why is that something that's going to take away from how I feel about myself because they felt that way? That's not me. That's not how I feel. Um, it it's hard, but it goes back to creating your own reality. It makes you step back and say, okay, this is how I want my reality to be, and I want to grow stronger, and I want to stand in my own self and be who I want to be. I want to create my story, and I can't, if I'm creating my story, I can't let somebody else's opinion of me take that away.
Well,
I can utilize them to help me create my story though, which is really powerful when you can get to that point. And when somebody insults you and you can say, okay, that stung me, and why did it sting me? And you can really go into that and why it affected you. That really helps you to grow and see yourself in different lights, and make the changes you want inside of you, because then the outside becomes a little clearer.
and you can flip it right in the moment too, and look them right at them and say, you must feel really horrible inside of yourself to say
Yeah, I'm a little
something
more gentle than that.
to like,
So we're all in happiness in the moment. It's great. I wanted to bring up one quick thing that I had a little light bulb on the other day with consciously creating. I'm noticing right now I'm doing a lot of imagery. Okay, so I may even just do it 10 seconds before I'm doing something. So, like, what I mean by imagery is imagine in your head things that you want to consciously create or things to happen around you. And it's not ego based. I'm talking, we're coming from our heart, we're grounded here. Go ahead and start imagining things for yourself in ways for it to happen. And this will really open up, because imagination is really that child self. When we're dreaming as a child does, we're imagining. If we can bring imagination in more and more, we're going to consciously co-create create our whole reality, way like more than like 50% of it. You'll do almost all of it. The more you can imaginatively create things, the more you're gonna bring in things around you. And we still have our crap, our dark things. It's all, we all have it. We have to, and that's gonna make us shift a little. Sometimes we imagine something, we learn about another darkness, and it shifts us a different way. Who the hell cares? Just being in that flow, like we talked last time, in the moment, as we're imaginatively creating, it's going to shift and change as we're doing it, but it's okay to flow with it, you know. And we can, I'm doing that lately. That's been my world. I'm creating like things a little before it happens, and it's weird how I'm seeing it before it happens now more and more. But it's just something I'm going through, for something I'm learning for myself. So it's
I
not going to be like that for everyone, you know.
Right.
well, and I think you're just in a way just getting aware of it
Yes, it's,
versus,
you're right. It's an
you know,
awareness
like
more than anything.
the obvious model is like building a house. Everyone says, well, what do you mean everything that's made happens in imagination first? I'm like, well, how do you build a house? You picture, what's it going to look like?
Yeah.
I mean, you can just start digging, I suppose, and put a board up and stuff, but you're probably going to step back after you do that and be like, well, what do I really want this thing to look like? And then redo it again, you know?
Yeah, you step in, when you step into that imagination, you're stepping into that creativeness, that the pure potential, and you're allowing that to open. And that's when it just, so that's when the magic happens.
When I think you're
awesome.
channeling, when Nate was saying all that, I'm getting, you're like channeling, you're making that vortex that, you know, that our imaginations are real. They're not, it's not just pretend. That's one more programming that, oh, it's just in your mind and that's it. And you're like, well, they've spent 200 years trying to find where your mind is, and they still can't find it because it's not in your head.
Do you know when I get out of that, imagine, you just said it perfect, an imagination vortex. Do you know when I get pulled out of that? When I have anger. Say I'm driving, because a lot of times this happens when I'm driving.
Oh,
Say I get a little road rage for a second, I come out of that and I'm like, bam, and I'm a whole different energy. And it's like, because I'm so explosive, you know. So like, and is that right or wrong? It's part of whatever I'm learning. But if I can stay neutral and not show that emotion and not feed the anger, it actually keeps me in the imagination, and I flow around whatever's going on in traffic like it's nothing.
yeah.
You
If
know?
there's any, I mean, that's one way to really prove all of this. Like when I've learned that on the highway, because things are happening so fast on the highway, if I start getting in that negative and, you know, vibe and imagining things, and then you even start imagining things going wrong, I'll just stop myself. I'm like, no, and it will start happening. Like all of a sudden somebody's cutting me off and I'm having to brake. And when I get myself back into the flow, all of a sudden I'm just like flowing through where there's traffic, and then I'm out on my own, just doing my own thing. It's easier when I'm by myself.
Yes.
I've had people in the car going, you know, it would be helpful if you're like with me a little bit on this trip, because they're like out and wherever, and they're like, well, I'm just riding, and I'm like, there's no
I heard that so many times from you. It's like, I'm not in your brain. You do your own thing.
No, but I mean, as far as creating the bubble around the trip, in as far as bringing in the frequency, you're not just there. There's no such thing. You're part of it too, and you can help tune it in, or you can be part of the chaos.
I think in that instance,
that's my
in that
point with
case,
that.
Todd, I think that's you're allowing fear to creep in. You even through your imagination. So if you're driving down the road and you're like, oh, somebody's going to get in my lane, you know, maybe you're doing it. Maybe there's a subconscious aspect of it that that starts to develop in your thought process, and then it starts to happen. It's because you can manifest things so quickly and easily, especially now. And then
The backseat driver thing, though, that will take me out of my flow for the way I am.
yeah.
If someone's a backseat driver telling me what to do, I'm
Mhm.
like flowing. I'm really good at flowing, even if I'm not paying attention totally. I'll be in that zone, and I'm a pretty good driver being in that flow. The second they do something like that, I'm out of that flow, and then I find I'm more aggravated with everything
I
else
agree.
around me. You know what I mean? It's hard.
Well, but we're back to going and
Yeah.
grounding and centering yourself and doing
Yeah.
it at a really nice pond on a really nice sunny day with the dragonflies all around, and doing it in the middle of the city. And the point to everybody else in the car is that, if you're like, hey, can I do this? And, especially I've noticed at the end of a trip when you're getting really tired, all of a sudden everyone else in the car is getting all agitated, and they're like changing the radio station, and they're like,
Are we
look
there
at,
yet?
there's this on my phone. And they're literally distracting the person driving, other than if, say, we were doing a group meditation and say, no, your job right now is to be like part of this flow. It will really help how this is going to happen. Not,
True.
Well, you do your own thing and block it all out. Yeah, you can do that, but you're not
It is true, but
you're not being supportive. You're not helping the program that's going on right then.
Both of those ideas are true. The idea of you being able to sit in that, because it's no different than walking the city street with all the chaos.
Right.
To be able to sit in the car with 5 people saying blah, or whatever they're doing, you've got to remain in your focus. And
I turn the music
big
up.
time. Yeah, there you go.
I turn the music up in that scenario, and it pisses everyone off, and I love it. Because it puts me back in my zone. When I put music on, that's been a lot of my life.
Well, sometimes you as the driver will do something that's disruptive on purpose to make
change
that white noise like we were talking about, to like blow it up, and everyone's like, well, you just ruined my whole vibe, and I'm like, you're here now though, aren't you? Now I got you here. You're actually here in the car with us again, because before you were just like in outer space.
We should do a meditation now, guys. We got I don't know who wants to do the meditation of us.
I can. Are we on
what meditation
time?
do we want to do? It's time.
Oh, okay.
Time to do
10:22.
Let's get I'll do I did one last week. Todd, you haven't done one. Go ahead.
Okay. Which one do you guys want?
Whatever you want to do. Go for it.
Do a nice one.
Do a nice
You just threw him out of his zone right there.
I know.
What do you mean I'm nice? Bye, Rachel.
No, I'm not, John. My battery says I'm low.
All right, no, I'm going to let it come in. Just give me a second.
Okay, ready, go.
Thanks. It's really helpful. It's just not. Is that funny? Do you feel better now?
Yeah.
Does it make you feel better?
I'm just laughing. It makes me feel better to laugh.
Aggravate somebody else makes you feel better. See?
I love watching you guys. It makes me laugh. All right. Game face.
Okay, so the meditation that I want to do, I'm going to just have to make this up, so I'm winging it. It's about what do you know, right? So it's really going to be a whole series of questions, and it's not to answer them out loud. It's just to take it with you and decide what you know, right? Like, so in other words, is the universe alive? That's one question to answer. And are you alive? there's another question to answer. So then, if I'm alive, can I choose my experience, or can I choose how I react to experiences? So do I have free choice in this live universe? And if the universe is alive, then is the universe aware of me? And if everything's made out of consciousness first, not material first, awareness first. So if the universe is awareness, then everything else is aware. The rocks are aware. The bed has an awareness, has a frequency. If you want to do it in frequency and vibration, there's a frequency. So then I can choose to communicate with any frequency. So I can take something that, well, this thing's annoying me, and it might. You might, have a programming. Somebody does something that's annoying to you. Am I going to blame that on them? It depends, or that's not an important answer. The answer is, do I have control over how I'm reacting? So if I have control over how I'm reacting to the stimulus outside of myself, then I can choose a different reaction, or I can at least choose to notice my reaction. I'm going to start changing it. Also, the question is, if the universe is alive and you're part of the universe, and the universe created you, and let's say we're going to call the universe God for a minute. God created you. Is that same God going to say you're a bad creation? Something wrong with you now? Or is that a disconnect to this part of the creation?
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
if you say, why would God create me or one of you to be told that you're bad and you're wrong and you're doing all these things? I think the shift is to say that I'm enough. So you go into yourself and you literally start saying, you're not saying I'm better than anybody else. You're not saying I'm more than anybody else. You're saying I am enough. I am, and it might be something you've never heard before. Did you hear that from your parents? Possibly. Did you hear it at school? That you're just enough. You're perfect how you are right now. Do you hear it when you go to the store? Are you hearing it from the television when you turn it on? Or are you hearing other things? You might be hearing, you never do it well enough. Why did you do it this way? You might be hearing, you need to be afraid of this, and you need to be afraid of that, and you need to be afraid of this, and you need to be afraid of that, and you need to let us choose that you do this and choose that you do that. And so the whole shift is, I'm enough, and I get to choose. And I'm choosing that it's all alive, and therefore I can connect to the channels and the frequencies of the life, of the creative forces. And there's disruptive forces in the creative forces, but they're not just constantly tearing down, or nothing would get created. So, and then I can communicate. So in grounding this, the first thing is to ask the earth permission, because it's a respect thing. You're saying, okay, Mother Earth, can I connect? And of course, you're going to hear yes. You're not going to hear no. That's silly. But you're also giving their permission. In the asking part, you're giving permission. So, can I connect? Yes, you can connect. Okay, Father Sky, good morning. Can I connect to you? Yeah, of course. And the next part then becomes not what can you do for me, but how do I serve? If you really want to synchronize yourself, you're going to say, how do I serve you? What is it that I can do? Guide me on what I can do to help all of these things that I see can be changed and fixed and made more supportive for the planet and for people. What's my place? And in supporting myself, what is it that I can do to allow myself to feel inside that I'm enough and that I am whole now and that I am perfect now and you'll get answers. You're going to get answers for yourself. You're not going to get the answers that I tell you. You're going to get simple things, but you're going to get that you have choice. You can choose to be reactive and to be programmed, or you can choose which station that you want to synchronize yourself with. That's it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming and thanks for listening. And it's amazing to do this. It's amazing to just sit around and talk.
Thank you.
So I really
Namaste to
it.
everybody. I appreciate it too.
Awesome.
Bye.